I'm just making sure that we're running first. Are we live? I'm just making sure that we're running. I believe we are live. Okay. So I'm going to start here. Start things off. We're going to review Knights of the Frozen Throne. All of its cards and a little bit of the adventure mode that came along with it for free, because although the adventure mode was nice and I'm glad it gave some free cards to everyone, that's all it really was in the end. It was just free cards. The big thing for this was the huge amount of cards, and some very, very influential, very powerful cards were introduced in this game, or in this expansion, I should say. So we're going to start here. We're going to start in our good old friend Lay Druid, because where else would we start, you know? The Druid, just first one, might as well. So we're going to start here, Druid of the Swarm. So before I get into details on the first card, I'm going to introduce the way that I am reviewing this. So I'm using a certain little criteria that I've set up for myself. I have it where I'm scaling them on a kit. I'm grading them on a scale. That's what it is. That's not my account. On a scale from 1 to 5, based on how good it is as a standalone card. Now, some of you might say, well, this one card is really good in this one deck. But if that's the only deck it's good in, it's not going to appear as good in the end as some others. It's not going to be rated nearly as high. So 1 star is the equivalent of... I'm also going to be rating them on their potential as well, mind you. So 1 star, though, is a horrible card, never going to see play, has no potential to see play in a future meta, at least no visible way. So just 1 star, horrible. Not going to happen. 2 stars. Not played now in more than one deck, and not even one dominant deck, but is used in, but has potential to be used. 3 will be a situational card where it's like, it's great in one deck or key in one top tier deck, but isn't used otherwise. 4 stars would be the idea that this card is great, it's a pretty decent card, but I wouldn't go out of the way to craft it. So it's like, good card, don't craft. Just open it if you can. 5 though, just craft now, used in tons of decks. And so it's like, you know, same thing is true if you think of it as disenchanting as well. I'll add to that whether you should disenchant or keep as well. I'll probably end up disenchanting some of these as I go as well, because if I'm not going to use the card, why should I keep it? But yeah, just think of it as 1 or 2 stars probably can disenchant. 3 or higher don't want to disenchant. 5, you want to craft them. That's how it's going to work. So we'll start here with Druid of the Swarm. So it's a 2 mana 1/2. Choose one. Transform into a 1/2 with Poisonous or a 1/5 with Taunt. Now this card has been very good in Token Druid, and I've tried using it in other Druid decks like Jade Druid as almost like just a free Taunt or another Poisonous that I can use, basically a cheaper Spreading Plague that only gives me 1, and it's okay. In Token Druid, and especially the Taunt Token Druid where you can get the 1/5 on turn 2, it's pretty good. So I would probably... You know, it's a very niche card. You know, it's very niche. So I'd give it 3 stars. We'll start there. Start with a nice, decent one. Now, Crypt Lord is another one of those cards in that situation where it's like, it's very good in the Taunt Druid deck, and it's okay in Jade Druid. So I would probably give it because the problem with this card is it's a 1/6. Yes, it can get more health, but unless you can buff that attack, it's not going to be a huge threat, and your opponent can eventually just punch through it. So unless you have the other card that's later in this set, or Mark of the Lotus, this card just is not as valuable to you. It's still a good card. In fact, I would give this, we'll call it 3.5 stars, but it's just not a very powerful card unless you back it up. And in most cases you will. Nash, I mean... It's cool that we now have Claw, Bite, and Nash, so we have 2, 3, and 4 attack and armor. But Claw is 1 mana. Bat and Bite is 4. you're paying 2 more mana for 1 more attack and 1 more armor on this turn. And Bite is like the top tier, like you get 4 damage, you get 4 armor. None of them see play. I don't really see a potential for Nash seeing play. Yes, it did see play in that one Tavern Brawl, but I don't really count that. So yeah, I'd give Nash 1 star. I just don't see it ever being used in a top tier deck as a key card. Strong Shell Scavenger, a lot of S's in that. I would give that card, well, I'll just start off with this. I'll give this card a 4-star rating because actually, I'll give it 3.5 because this card is another one of those where it's great in Taunt Druid, a archetype that was very, very heavily pushed in this expansion, just with the amount of taunts that Druid can now make, and just the amount of buffs that it has had and now got, especially with this guy. It's a good card, but you're not going to be playing it anything other than Taunt Druid, so yeah, I'd give it 3 stars. Not even 3.5, just 3 stars. It's still a good card, though. If you want to play Taunt Druid, you need this card. Like, you're not playing Taunt Druid without this. Fate Spinner. So, 5 mana, 5/3, already horrible stats, but it's a choose a death rattle, which is nice. I like that we're now seeing choose 1 effects that aren't just your minion becomes one thing or another, or a spell does one thing or another. It's like more static. And it's choose a death rattle secretly, so your opponent can't know what it is. Either deal 3 damage to all minions or give them +2/+2. But here's the problem with this card. Very rarely are you going to play this card and your opponent will be in a situation where they will have trouble guessing which one you chose. And even if they guess right too, that's very bad for you. Like if you play the buff, or if you choose the buff and they play a bunch of tokens before killing your guy, suddenly they have a huge board that you really don't know what to do with outside of your like 2 buffed guys. Same thing is true with the damage. If they guess right, your board is gone, they play more guys. It's very hard to get it to work. I just don't think it's a cool concept. I love the secret death rattles and the fact that you choose them, but outside of that, I just don't see them getting the use that it deserves. And so it's like I'll give Fate Spinner 2 stars. It's like I could see it being used in a very powerful way later, but I just don't think it's ever going to be seen in this Knights of the Frozen Throne expansion era. Webweave. Summon it 5 mana, summon 2 1/2 poisonous spiders. Now, the 1/2 poisonous spiders are good, but I don't think it's worth 5 mana, and I don't think anyone really does. So, it's one of those cards where it's not bad, and it's pickable in Arena even. But, and as far as Constructed goes, it's just not valuable enough, and it gets pushed out of decks by a lot of other cheaper or more effective cards. So, instead of this one, I'll give this 1 star. It's just not. It's too expensive. Let's put me over here. There I am. Get out of here, Steam. Spreading Plague. The recently nerfed Spreading Plague. Summon a 1/5 Taunt Scarab, and if your opponent has more minions, cast this again. Initially people thought of this as Unleash the Scarabs, but obviously that didn't happen, because Unleash the Scarabs would be summon a 1/1 or a 1/5 taunt for every minion your opponent has, which would have been a lot better. But this just became such a great way for Jade Druid to counter aggro decks so immensely and so quickly that that's part of why it got nerfed to this. And obviously, as you can tell, I disenchanted mine just to get that dust back. If I open more from more packs, I probably won't disenchant them unless this is still going on, because it is a good card. Even at 6 mana, it's a good card, and it funnily enough almost makes it a little more useful in Jade Druid if you have Medivh with you, so that's just kind of cool. And the Death Knight that is really just kind of taken over Druid. Like, I don't think there is any deck that's Druid outside of Token Druid that does not want this card in it. So the Death Knight for Druid is a little ridiculous. Malfurion the Pestilent. Choose 1, summon 2 poisonous spiders or 2 scarabs with taunt. So the 1/5s and the 1/2s that we saw earlier. And his hero power, choose 1, gain 3 attack this turn or gain 3 armor. So obviously with Fandral this is a little ridiculous, but rarely do you have Fandral on the board in turn 7, and you can't play him on the same turn. So it doesn't really work as well with Fandral. Like, you can't expect this to get Fandral every single time you go through. But getting the free taunts is just very useful. I mean, the 5 armor is also nice. It's just a little bit of a heal. Druid has okay healing, though. It's Rogue that really benefits from the armor, if you ask me, because they have next to no healing. Plague Lord is a good hero power, just 3 damage each turn, or if you really need to heal 3 armor. It's nice to have. And also, after you play Malfurion, you can still Fandral and get both. So it's a very good hero. I would give it, honestly, if you don't have Malfurion by now, I would say craft it. I would give this card 5 stars. Hadronox. Why? This card, a great concept again, much like N'Zoth. It's basically Taunt N'Zoth. 9 mana, 3/7, Death Rattle, summon your taunt minions that die this game. The big problem with this card, and it's a problem that will continue to exist for this card for all eternity, it is 9 mana for a 3/7, and it does not have taunt. It's a Death Rattle. It has to be activated by your opponent. So unless you want to naturalize your own minion that you just played for 9 mana, and I admit 3/7 is not a stat nearly worth 9 mana, you will not be able to, like, if you play this and you don't have anything else on the board that's a taunt to keep your opponent from doing this, they're just going to keep hitting all their stuff to your face. They won't care about this minion. And you can say, oh man, but you can play Hadronox, have it get killed, all your taunts come back, then you play N'Zoth and you get another Hadronox. Yes, but Hadronox still needs to die for all your taunts to come back. It's just not worth playing. If there's a deck that can somehow make Hadronox be a bigger threat, or utilize the fact that, or even if there's a change room that makes it a bigger threat that your opponent has to kill and then has to kill all the taunts, then I could see it seeing play. But as it is now, just 1 star. If you have it, go ahead and get rid of it. I don't see it seeing play in any type of a serious or consistent deck anytime soon, even in Taunt Druid. And Ultimate Infestation, the thing that made Jade Druid a little ridiculous for a while. So 10 mana, this has been called like the value card of ages. Ultimate Infestation, deal 5 damage, draw 5 cards, gain 5 armor, summon a 5/5 ghoul. Just 5s everywhere. It's a little, honestly, it's a little too much value for 10 mana. And obviously you can't have it be more expensive than that, because then you can't play it. Like, my big gripe with this card is, if I had it my way, I would have nerfed this along with some of the other cards and had it be 4, 4, 4, and 4. But then the ghoul dies a little bit too easily, so it's hard to keep the consistency. Maybe even just get rid of the ghoul and have it be 5 damage, 5 cards, and 5 armor would have been enough, because just getting a 5/5 ghoul on the board along with all this is ridiculous. Like, it's a lot of good stuff on this card that you can get. Like, if you don't have this, craft it immediately. Craft 2 if you can. It's such a good card, especially if you plan on playing Druid. It's very good. 5 stars. Over to Hunter, a class that both got a lot and got very little at the same time in this expansion. Play dead, 1 mana, trigger friendly minions Death Rattle. Basically Feign Death from, I forget which expansion. Not bad. I mean, I wouldn't disenchant it. I would give it... See, Death Rattle Hunter isn't really a thing right now, is the thing. But they do have a lot of good Death Rattle cards. Even Savannah Highmaid, or like, if you really want to, I'll get to the card that this is really good with later. But it's very good in those types of situations. Like, there are cards you can combo with this very well. But as a whole, this card is not something that's going to change a meta. It's only 1 mana. Play dead, trigger minion, trigger Death Rattle. If you have the Death Rattles for it, great. Like in Wild, this could be played with Sylvanas, and you functionally steal a bunch of minions. But otherwise, it's just not worth it. So I'll give it 2 stars, just because. 1.5 actually. I don't see it being a huge thing where it's like everyone needs Play Dead in their deck. There are other ways to make it work. Toxic Arrow. Deal 2 damage to a minion. If it survives, give it poisonous. So here's the thing with this card. You could treat it as a 2 mana deal 2 damage. Or you could treat it as a 2 mana give a minion poisonous. But you also have to hurt your own minion. There's no one way that this works, really. Like, you either have to throw away 2 health from a very high health minion that you have in order to give it poisonous. So if you're really desperate, yes, it works. But there are better ways for Hunter to deal 2 damage otherwise. And so it's a very, very situational card. Not a key card in really any deck. Even a Control Hunter deck right now doesn't really use it. I'd give it 2 stars. It's just not a very, very swingy card. Venom Strike. Secret. When one of your minions is attacked, summon a 2/3 Poisonous Cobra. Basically, this card is Snake Trap 0.5. It's not bad, mind you. In fact, it makes things kind of awkward for your opponents, because they have to go into a situation where if they attack one of your minions to trigger the trap, they have to figure out some way to deal with that Cobra. Which is not impossible. They could easily do that. but it's not something that they are set up for in many cases. In some cases, they have to pick which of their minions they want to kill off just to get that Cobra out of the way. Is it as good as Snake Trap in the long run? Not really. Hunter, in a lot of cases, wants a lot of beasts on the board, and the Cobra can die pretty quickly if they do have a minion to throw into it. So I'd give this card 3 stars. It's not bad. In a Secret Hunter deck, you'll want it, just because it's a secret. But as a whole, it's not a card I would craft. Bear Shark. 3 mana, 4/3. Can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. This card is actually very, very interesting for Hunter and very good as a beast card for their decks. The fact that it can't be targeted, has 4 attack, so it's like instantly scares away priests. This card has made Hunters very good against priests in certain situations. Plus, it is a beast, so you think Bear Shark on 3, Houndmaster on 4, impossible wall to break through. It's just a very good card. I would give this card 4 stars, honestly. It's a very, very powerful card. And not in a traditional sense, either. It's not just a mountain of stats for 10 mana. It's not a huge effect, but it's very good for what it is. Stitch Tracker, 3 mana, discover a copy of a minion in your deck. So it's basically Hunter Shadow Visions, as we remember from Ungoro. So Stitch Tracker is a very key card in a lot of Hunter decks right now. Especially the Deathstalker Rexar Hunter decks, because some of them will play a more controlling game, and so because of that they will want to have the Stitch Tracker to get them more of their key minions, a la Savannah Highmane and Tundra. So I would call Stitch Tracker a 3.5 star card. It's hard to give this 4 stars because it's not a card. It's hard to value these cheap cards very highly when you think about it, because they can't have these big effects because they're so cheap. But as a whole, actually, you know what? This card, I'm going to give it 4 stars. Stitch Tracker gets 4 stars because it is just a good card. The interesting thing is it being in Hunter makes things a little more awkward for them, as they can't, like, you're playing a 2/2 for 3, it's not even a beast. For this to be really effective, you almost have to be playing a control deck or be looking for something very specific. Exploding Blowbat, 4 mana, 2/1, sounds horrible. Death Rattle, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. So you think about it, this plus Play Dead is a 5 mana combo to do functionally Blizzard without the freeze. Not bad. But to do that, you have to put this card in your deck. And your opponent can easily play around the damage if they so choose to, and even kill it off before playing any more minions. So you can't really take advantage of it as much as you could if it were just a spell, obviously. It's not really seeing any play right now either, because the controlling decks are just playing threats as opposed to playing this is a board clear. It is interesting to get off of the zombies, but we'll get to that later. I would give this card 3 stars. I could see this card getting some decent play in the future, but at the moment, I don't see it really happening. On to the next one, Professor Putricide. Oh god, I wish they had done this guy better as a legendary just in terms of power. Like, this guy could have been so great, but he just isn't. Like, he just isn't what you would expect from Professor Putricide, honestly. I don't know why, he just isn't. The one thing that he does have going for him is also one of the problems with him. After you play a secret, you put a random Hunter secret into the battlefield as well. That sounds good on paper, it's free. It's a free secret. And a lot of people were saying when this card was revealed, Cloaked Huntress on 3, Putricide on 4, play a bunch of secrets, and you have the Christmas tree. But the problem is, you can only play 2 secrets and get the free one with it. Because if you play that 5th secret, or that 3rd secret from your hand, you have 5 secrets and you can't get another one. So it really kind of defeats its own snowball, if you get my drift. It can't be as big of a value just explosion as, say, a Lyra would be, where you can just keep playing cards as you have mana. So I would give Putricide 2 stars. It's not seeing play at all right now in any top tier deck, and in a perfect world, maybe it sees play in a Secret Hunter, but it's not going to be a key card, so 2 stars. Corpse Widow. 5 mana, 4/6, is a beast. That's big in Hunter. Your Death Rattle cards cost 2 less, so I think your Savannah Highmanes, your Exploding Blowbats, Abominable Bowman, just any big Death Rattle card you want in Hunter. This card is what you're playing if you're playing a Death Rattle, or even a Control Hunter in most cases. It's not seeing a lot of play right now because Death Rattle Hunter is not really a thing as much as a Control Hunter is. So not many people are thinking to put Corpse Widow into their deck as a key card. I would personally give Corpse Widow, though, a 4-star rating because of this great effect. And if you want to play a Hunter with big Death Rattle cards, you want this to make them cheaper. Now to Hunter's Death Knight, Deathstalker Rexar, which is one of my favorites, even though it's a little underpowered. It's become very popular lately. Its Battlecry, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions, and obviously you get the armor. It's one of the cheapest ones at 6 mana. But its hero power is one of my favorites out of this expansion. Build a beast. Hero power, craft a custom Zombeast. Now, what is a Zombeast? What it does is you are given 2 discovery options of beasts that cost 5 mana or less, and it literally just mushes everything of them together. Their text becomes both combined, their health and attack become both of them added together, and their mana cost is both mana costs added together. That's why they don't give you an option greater than 5 mana in either, so you can still play it at any point. At most, it can be a 10 mana Build-A-Beast. You get some interesting combos with this, like you get Stonehusk Boar into Vicious Fledgling for just, charging Vicious Fledgling, which is always fun. You get Stampeding Kodo plus a high attack minion for extra burst. There's a lot you can do with this, and it's become a very fun thing to play in my mid-range Hunter deck, or even in a control deck that some people have tried to build around it. So Deathstalker Rexar is a solid card. I don't think it's quite a 5-star card. I'd give it 4 stars, just because it's not really taking over the meta in the way that many people thought it would. And I think that's because, as Hunter, many people play this card wrong, where they think, oh, 6 mana, I have Rexar in hand, I'm going to play him. When in reality, though, you're getting rid of your 2 damage hero power, which can be very useful as a Hunter if you got any type of a lead in the early game. Like, I've played games against a Deathstalker Rexar deck where they've played their hero, and because of that could not finish me off when I was at like 12 health when they played it. So just think about that if you're playing this card. You want to think before you play it, can I kill him with this hero power? Or am I going to have to play the long game? If you're going to have to play the long game against someone, you want to play Deathstalker Rexar as soon as you can to get the Build-A-Beast going. But yeah, 4 stars. Abominable Bowman. Death Rattle, 7 mana, 7/6, or 6/7, summon a random friendly beast that died this game. This card sounds good until you realize that how many cheap beasts Hunter wants to play. It would be great if you could think, okay, 6/7 dies, out comes the Savannah Highmane. But if you play a card like this, you can't play Unleash the Hounds because then you just get a 1/1 beast with charge that dies. You can't play this with almost any of their cheap beasts because they get resummoned as well. There are just too many beasts that you don't want to get off of this effect for it to be very good. I could see maybe down the line if there was a Control Hunter deck that only has very powerful beasts for their late game, and plus Abominable Bowman and Nazoth maybe. And then like their early game cards are like Mistress of Mixtures and Tar Creeper and no beasts. Not even Unleash the Hounds. Kill Command would be a little awkward in that case, but it works. And so it's just like they get rid of all the cheap beasts and they only throw in the big beasts. Then I could see this working. So I'm going to give Abominable Bowman 2 stars. Because it's not doing anything right now, but God, could it be good later if the meta is right. On to Mage. Breath of Sindragosa. Very good in Arena. It's a pretty good card to get in Arena. I think like it reminds me of Flame Cannon in a way, where it's just like a cheap random damage that you can throw if they play a card that has stealth or something like that you just need to kill. The freeze is also nice. But as a whole in Constructed, it's just not a very key card in any deck that's going on right now. So I would give Breath of Sindragosa 2 stars. It's just not seen powerful play in Constructed at the time. Ice Walker kind of falls under the same boat. Pretty decent in Arena, but your hero power freezing the target, a 1/3 elemental. Some people will play it in their Frostlich Jaina decks, but as a whole, this card is not such big of a threat as people think it can be. I don't know. I'll give this card 3 stars. It's seen a little bit of play here and there, but it's by no means a key card in any deck. I would not recommend crafting this unless you really want to play Elemental Mage, and even then you can get by without it. Cold Wraith, great in Arena. I'm saying that right now. 3 mana, 3/4 is basically Spider Tank without being a mech. And Battle Cry, if an enemy is frozen, draw a card. That's a great Battle Cry. It's much easier to freeze people now because of Breath of Sindragosa and some other mage cards. So, yeah, I would give this card... In Constructed, too, this is seen play in combo mages, or OTK mage, just to draw more cards and be a good body. I would give this card 4 stars. It's very powerful, very nice for its cost of just 3 mana. Crafted if you want to play any type of mage that has freezing in it, because you're going to want the card draw. This card, Doomed Apprentice. 3 mana, 3/2. Your opponent's spells cost 1 more. At the point of turn 3 comes around, chances are you will have your opponent will have the ability to kill a 3/2 just on the board, so their spells costing 1 more won't matter as much. So while this card is an interesting concept, they really needed to make it either also 2 mana or a little bit buffer. Like my ideal world would have been a 3 mana or a 2 mana 2/3. Instead of the 2 mana 3/2 the other version of the Sorcerer's Apprentices. Then I could see this possibly being a hard choice for a mage deck to be like, well, do I want to make my spells cheaper or make my opponent trip up a little bit? But as it is now, I don't see it really ever being too powerful. So I'll give this card 1 star. It's just not that great. Frozen Clone. 3 mana secret, because all mage secrets are 3 mana. After your opponent plays a minion, add 2 copies of it to your hand. So it's seen play in Secret Mage, but it's not a very powerful secret because it gets blocked in many... It gets played around in pretty much the other ways you play around these secrets, whereas much like Potion of Polymorph and Mirror Entity, you just play a weak minion that doesn't have anything good. But the one difference is, they can't play ones with good battle cries to this. Say they play a Babbling Book, I suddenly get 2 Babbling Books, and I can play the mage spells that come off it. So it's interesting. It adds another level of depth to playing around mage secrets, but it's just not quite big enough to be like, this card, oh my god. It's not Ice Block. It's just not Ice Block. It's not Counterspell. Those will always be the best mage secrets. So I give this card... It's a pretty key piece in... Secret Mage, much like Mirror Entity, just to give them minions. So I'll give this card 3 stars. Simulacrum. So when I first saw this card, I thought it was bad. I was like, copy the lowest cost minion in your hand, great. Another Mana Worm. Another Wisp. Why would I want a copy of it? But then it came to the point where people started playing OTK Mage again. And that got very interesting, very fast. Because Simulacrum now gives you 2 more ways in your deck to copy your Sorcerer's Apprentice, apart from your Molten Reflections, which can be very powerful just to be able to make sure that you can't get your combo broken by Dirty Rats and stuff like that. And so because of that, I give this card 3 stars because although it is good in OTK Mage, that's about it. There's no big thing for this card to be really good in yet. Unless you get into the situation where you just have a big minion in your hand and that's it. Ghastly Conjurer. Pretty good in Arena, not gonna lie. 4 mana, 2/6, Battlecry, add Mirror Image to your hand. Very good in OTK Mage / Quest Mage because this is another spell to trigger your quest. Plus it gives you a little bit of survivability with the 2 taunts. I like this card in the Quest Mage, but I don't think that many people played in that. I'm gonna give this card 3 stars because while it is good, once again, in Secret Mage, in Quest Mage, not a whole lot otherwise. But otherwise, it's just kind of an okay card. It is pretty good in Arena, but as are a lot of other cards. So 3 stars. Glacial Mysteries. So this is basically Mage, Mysterious Challenger, if we remember that. But the difference there being, though, that this card does not have the immediate effect that Mysterious Challenger had. Now some people say well, what do you mean it has the ability to just summon a bunch of your secrets out of your deck like that Mysterious Challenger did? What is it missing? It's missing the multiple effects that Mysterious Challenger could have based on what the secrets were. Mage's secrets are not as threatening, and Mage does not have as many influential secrets as Paladin did at the time. That made Secret Paladin ridiculous. It does not have Avenge. It does not have Noble Sacrifice. What made those were the two secrets that made Secret Paladin amazing back in the day, because you would just play your Mysterious Challenger, you would pull Avenge and Noble Sacrifice and whatever other secrets you still had back in your deck, and then when they went to attack, they would trigger the Noble Sacrifice and the Avenge because they would kill the guy, and your Mysterious Challenger would get the Avenge buff. You'd be guaranteed to get that. Whereas Glacial Mysteries, the mage secrets just don't synergize that well with each other. They're just there. And they're good secrets, but they aren't worth 8 mana to get them. So yeah, I'd give this card 1 star. I don't really see it ever seen play. It's just too expensive for what it does. And I don't think it'll ever work. Sindragosa. I really wish this had been a neutral legendary, because it's such a big character in what I know of the Ice Crown lore. But as it is, Battlecry, summon 2/0/1 Frozen Champions, 8 mana, 8/8 dragon. The problem with the Frozen Champions is obviously that they can't attack, but what's cool about them is they're death rattles that give you a random legendary minion. That sounds good, right? Oh, free legendary, great. But of course the biggest problem with that is not all legendaries are good. You get, like, of these 2 random legendaries you could get Lorewalker Cho and Millhouse Manastorm. You're not going to want those. But you could also get Deathwing and the other Deathwing. You could get Deathwing and Antonidas. You could get Antonidas and I don't know if you can get non-made or other classes legendaries, but you could potentially get Antonidas and Tyrion. You could get some really good cards, but it's really RNG dependent. It is good in some control mage decks will throw it in just to get the extra resources, so I'll give it that. It's not a bad card, but it's not as good as some legendaries need to be to see play now, especially to see like a desire to be crafted right away. So I give Sindragosa 3 stars. It's a pretty interesting card, and I think in the right meta, if Dragon Mage becomes a very powerful thing again, it will see play, but as of right now, it's not. Frostlich Jaina, the card that is single-handedly becoming a menace in Arena. 9 mana, Death Knight. Seems expensive, but hers is actually worth it. Your elementals get lifesteal for the rest of the game, you summon a water elemental, and your hero power, Icy Touch, deal 1 damage. If this kills a minion, summon a water elemental. This in Elemental Mage is ridiculous. The amount of survivability, and this is Arena, is also ridiculous. You can't kill this unless you have your own super powerful Death Knight play. You just can't kill Jaina once she activates this in Arena. This card, instant 5 stars. I think this card is amazing. If you don't have this, craft it, play Elemental Mage, it's great. The one thing I love doing with this card is with Baron Geddon, suddenly the 2 mana AoE, or 2 damage AoE to all characters. Obviously, you'd take 2 damage, but you also heal it back because you dealt 2 damage. And every 2 damage, everything it hits heals you for 2. So it's very powerful. 5 stars. Paladin. Righteous Protector. Basically, power creeped Argent Squire. 1 mana, 1/1 Taunt Divine Shield. Very good. Rallying Blade buffs it. What more could you want? 5 stars. It's a great card. Great in the early game, obviously, because it's a 1/1 Divine Shield taunt, much like Argent Squire. But also great in the late game because of the taunt. Your opponent basically has to hit this twice to kill it in the late game, which is always great. Annoyatron was great because of that too. So yeah, 5 stars. Dark Convictions. Send a minion's attack and health to 3. So basically it's the Aldorf, or it's the Keeper of Uldaman effect again. It's the Sunkeeper Tarim effect again. But as a spell, and because it doesn't have the minion attached to it, it's a little bit worse. I don't know. It's nice. It's a nice way to remove buffs from a minion, or just weaken like a Deathwing if they play it. But otherwise, I just don't see it seen to play as a very crucial card. So I give this card 2 stars. Desperate Stand. Give a minion Death Rattle. Return this to life with 1 health. So this is basically Death Rattle Redemption. But it's also silenceable. And it's very good in Divine Shield decks, but Divine Shield decks have not exactly taken off with Paladin this expansion. I can see this eventually being good though, is the thing. So I give this card 2 stars. It could eventually like run away with the meta. Howling Commander, Battlecry, draw a Divine Shield minion from your deck. So once again, Divine Shield decks, this is very good because it's a draw. But you got to think, what do you want to draw? You could draw Tyrion. You could draw Bolvar. You could draw the new Argent Squire, Argent Protector. You could draw Argent Squire. You could draw almost any Divine Shield minion. But the thing is, those aren't very influential. Not all of them are Tyrians. And so most people will be like, well, yeah, I want to draw Tyrion with this. If you put just this and Tyrion in your deck as the things for it to draw, what if you already draw Tyrion? Then suddenly this is a 3-mana 2/2 and it's a horrible card at that point. So it's a cool concept to be like, draw specific stuff from your deck and you can play around it and basically build your deck around Divine Shield or even just one Divine Shield minion. As a whole, I don't think this card is very good. It hasn't taken off obviously in any way, so I give this card 2 stars. Arrogant Crusader, 4-mana 5/2. If this is your opponent's turn, summon a 2/2 ghoul. I like the aggressive statting on this. This is how these basically have to be. But the fact that it's only a 2/2 ghoul that it summons, you can deal 2 damage and 2 damage in succession fairly easily as against a paladin. So it just really hasn't worked. I love this on your opponent's turns death rattle stuff. It's very interesting. It's nice in aggressive decks. And it's a very interesting concept. It's new, but it just hasn't really worked for this card. So I actually give this card 1 star. It's just has not worked, and the 2/2 ghoul is not worth it off the death rattle. Chillblade Champion, 4-mana 3/2 charge lifesteal. It's pretty good, honestly. If it gets buffed by hand buff cards, it's even better. It's obviously understated, but the lifesteal is very worth it. It basically is also like healing you for 3 on the turn you play it. So that's one way to look at it. But as a whole, this card is a little niche. It's only really powerful in hand buff decks because otherwise it just cannot get strong enough to really do the amount of damage that you need it to. And especially to heal you for the amount you need it to. So I give this card 3 stars. It's not... You can't use it outside of a hand buff deck. That's why. Light Sorrow, 1 star. After friendly minion loses Divine Shield, gain 1 attack, 1/4 for 4 mana. Competes with True Silver, is not nearly as good as True Silver, 1 star. You don't want this, you want to enchant it, get the 100. Get the 100 dust, it's an epic. It's not worth it. Bolvar. Oop, he's back. Bolvar is back, and as Fireblood. 5-mana 1/7 because old habits die hard. Divine Shield, after a friendly minion loses Divine Shield, gain 2 attack. So in theory, this is at very least a 5-mana 3/7. But the difference is this guy has to be on board when they lose their Divine Shield to gain the attack. Which is not as good as the buff also coming from your hand. And obviously, since Divine Shield decks have not taken off, Bolvar has struggled in the process. It's not bad in Arena because, once again, 5-mana 3/7 is still good. But as a whole, this card just is a little disappointing. It's a nice idea for an archetype, but it just hasn't worked. And who knows, if the right Divine Shield cards come out, and potentially also in Wild, it could be amazing. So I give this card 3 stars, or 2 stars. It could one day be very good, but it just isn't right now. Blackguard, I only have 1 of them. I didn't know that. Whenever your hero is healed, deal that much damage to a random enemy minion. And this is a funny little quote here. Did I ever tell you the story of when I single-handedly took down a 29-29 Cthulhu, Reno Jackson? And that's the interesting thing here. It's like, if you can high roll on this card, you can take down stuff that's as powerful as you want, just provided you are missing enough health to heal. But you have to heal yourself for a lot to make this chip damage worth it. So that's the one thing. And it's not like it's... If this were... The one thing that I think would make this card better is if it were almost Avenging Wrath style, where it does 1 at a time to random enemy minions. Because then you could still get your big, oh, I healed for 29, the Cthulhu is now dead, great. But you can also get the... There are a bunch of things with health on the board, with like 1 or 2 health on the board. I'm going to heal, just play Lay on Hands and destroy their board. But as it is now, it's not horrible, but it just isn't working in this meta. Like, Paladin healing just not as powerful enough, or maybe there aren't enough threats for this to kill. So I give this card 2 stars. It's just great. It's a good concept, kind of fun to think about, but it's not working right now. Uther of the Even Blade. Battlecry, equipped a 5/3, basically a Dashbringer with lifesteal. Hero power, summon a 2/2 Horseman. If you have all 4, destroy the enemy hero. So this is the first win condition that exists in this game that does not get your opponent to 0 health. I personally don't know how I feel about it, but that's beside the point. That's just more what it means for the game as a whole. But as it is, this card is very good as a Death Knight. The lifesteal weapon is very powerful. It basically can pull you back from the jaws of death just by hitting your opponent in the face 3 times. Heal for 15 just because of that. And the Horseman, obviously, the 2/2 is an upgraded version of the Silverhand Recruit, but also it's something that your opponent has to kill. He has to keep your Horseman count down, especially if he thinks you're playing the Exodia version of this deck, where you just have Auction Master Beardo, coins, and the ability to keep hero powering in one turn to kill him with that. They have to keep you down to a small number of horsemen and kill off your what's that card? Broggerly Bully. Otherwise, you'll just be able to OTK them. So it creates a new archetype. It's an interesting concept. I don't know how I feel about the ability to just kill an opponent without lowering their health. So we'll see how it ends up affecting the game long term, but at this moment, I give this card 4 stars. Unless you want to play the Exodia deck, it's not going to be a key card to any of your decks, but it's definitely going to make your Paladin decks better. On to Priest. This has been an interesting one, this expansion. Shadow Ascendant. At the end of your turn, give another random friendly minion, +1/+1. This can't buff itself, though. It cannot. Unless you have 2 on the board, in which case they buff each other. Unless you play 2 of these on turn 3 of the coin or on turn 4, or you manage to get 2 of them alive at the same time, it can't snowball as well as other cards can. It hasn't really seen play outside of a couple Zoo Priesty decks, or Zooey Priest decks. So I give this card 3 stars. It's interesting, it's pretty good in Arena, but not a very top tier card. Spirit Lash. 2 mana lifesteal, deal with Dave Shaw minions, so it's a 2 mana lifesteal whirlwind basically. It's very good in control control priest decks because of the healing mostly. And also this plus spell power, this plus wild pyro, it's 2 damage or more to all minions, so it's a nice board clear. But it's not exactly a key card in the deck, it's more of a tech card. But I still give it 4 stars. If you want to play any type of priest deck that needs a little bit of survivability, Spirit Lash is a good card for it. Acolyte of Agony, 3 mana, 3/3 lifesteal. Nothing too special about this card. 2 stars. Nothing spectacular to do with it. It's just a random minion with a little bit of lifesteal. Eternal Servitude, 4 mana. Discover a friendly minion that died this game. Summon it. This is what made Barnes Priest and Big Priest good again. I know. Good again, quote, whatever. But this, like the ability to play Barnes on 4, get a Yasharaj, get the Yasharaj to bring something out of your deck. They kill your Yasharaj, you Eternal Servitude's back as a 10/10. This is an amazing card. I'm glad they gave Priest this card. And it's just very, very good in general. And like, obviously it's great in Big Priest. You need this for Big Priest. It's also good in most late game Priest decks because you can discover the minion that you resummon. It's much better than any other resurrection effect because you can choose what you're getting. You can't, obviously it's not going to show you a pool of every single minion that's died on your side of the board. But say you get 2 bad options, you still have that 3rd option that could be good for you to summon. So this is a very good card in that. If you plan on playing any type of control priest or late game or even mid game priest with a Lyra, you want this card. 5 stars. Devour Mind. 5 mana, copy 3 cards in your opponent's deck and add them to your hand. It's lifesteal, or it's thought steal +1. It's not that great. If you really need extra resources in your deck, cool, take it. But it's not something you're dying to put in your deck either. So, I don't know. I give it 2 stars. If you want to use it, it's not a bad thing, but it's not going to be something you're clamoring to use either. Embrace Darkness. 6 mana, choose an enemy minion. At the start of your turn, gain control of it. So it's a 6 mana delayed mind control. But that's about it. It's not very powerful. Your opponent can play around it by either killing or damaging their own minion. Like, you can't play this card when you have something big on the board, because then your opponent just throws their minion into that and it's gone. It's just too easy to get out of it, if you ask me. If you play it on something meaningful. So, 1 star. I don't see this ever being good. Shadow Essence, the other card that made Barnes Priest good, because it's a 6 mana Barnes, but gives you a 5/5 minion instead. So 5/5 for 6 is obviously a little understated, but when you can get it as a 5/5 Ysera, a 5/5 Lich King, a 5/5 Deathwing, Yasharaj, 5/5 of pretty much anything. Even a 5/5 Barnes is just 5/5. So it's a good card. but only in Big Priest, so I give it 4 stars. Archbishop, 7 mana, 4/6. Shuffle a copy of your opponent's deck into your deck. 2 problems. 1, your opponent's deck is built to synergize with itself, and you're not guaranteed to only draw those cards. 2, if you draw this late in the game, it's useless. You're basically copying 4 cards. You're just not going to get the cards you need out of your opponent's deck to make this worth playing such an understated minion that it really doesn't do anything when it's played. Yeah, I just don't see this ever being very good. Outside of maybe in a Super Control Priest, or even a Fatigue Priest maybe, where you just want to have cards to outlast your opponent, but outside of that, I don't see it working. So, I'll give it 2 stars. Anduin, the Death Knight that is now on top of the game. Battlecry, destroy all minions with 5 or more attack, and Void Form is fucking ridiculous. Deal 2 damage, and when you play a card, refresh it. Holy shit, is this ability good. So the one major problem with this ability that I find that is really making this meta hard to deal with, it's very, very, and I mean very, uninteractive. You can't really kill this once it gets going, especially with Raza. That's the big thing that this is making Singleton Priest hard to beat. If you want to play any type of Singleton Priest, you want this card. Even as a card in general in Priest, the 5 destroy all mana minions with 5 or more attack is just very good. Void Form is not bad to have if you plan on playing any type of Shadow Priest deck. This is definitely a 5-star card that you want to craft. But yeah, this is definitely very good. Void Form is stupid good with Raza, stupid good with any type of cheap cards. You can just it was called Machine Gun Priest at some points because it was just 2 damage, 2 damage, 2 damage, 2 damage, 2 damage. Especially there's combos now with Velen, where each one does 4, with Mind Blast alongside it to do 10, 14, and with it being Raza, it's even cheaper. So basically picture Raza to put it down to 0, you throw out Velen, you have Holy Smite, and you have Mind Blast. So you go 2, you play Velen, 4, then you play Mind Blast another 10, then you fire it again for 4, then you play Holy Smite for 4, then you Void Form again for 4. 4, 4, 4, 12, 10, 14, then 2 more 4, then a 4 and a 2, that's 20. So 20 damage combo right there. Very powerful. Obsidian Statue. This made Barn Priest very good as well. 9 mana, 4/6, Taunt, Lifesteal, Death Rattle, destroy a random enemy minion. It's about as awkward to play around as Sylvanas once was, just because you don't want your good stuff getting stolen, or in this case, destroyed. The Lifesteal is nice, especially since it's not a taunt, so they have to heal you, or have hard removal, or transform. Also very good in Barnes Priest because if you summon a 1/1 of it, it does the effect still. It will destroy a minion, and then you can resummon it as a 4/8. One of my favorite minions to ever be released, especially in this expansion. 5 stars if you ever plan on playing Priest. It's even good in non-Barnes Priest decks. On to Rogue. Oh boy, we got a lot of cards to go here. I'm going to go to Doomerang to start here. Throw your weapon at a minion. It deals its damage and returns to your hand. Cool. But it hasn't really proven itself in Constructed yet, so I give this 2 stars. It's just, I like the idea of getting your weapon back. So like, say you play Assassin's Blade, you swing 3 times, then you play Doomerang. So you still deal the 3 damage, then you get it back in your hand, you can play it again as a 3/4. But otherwise, I just don't see it being very good. Leeching Poison, 2 mana, give your weapon lifesteal. Rogue doesn't have a weapon to support this yet, so 2 stars. It could be good someday if Rogue gets the weapons for it. Nothing with enough durability and attack, though, to make it work yet. Roll the Bones. Draw a card if it has Death Rattle casts again. Death Rattle Rogue, not a good enough thing yet to really work with this card, so not worth it. 2 mana, draw a card, no. 1 star. Plague Scientist. I've actually had some success with this in Arena on stream, even. 3 mana, 2/3 combo, give a friendly minion poisonous. You're not going to put this in a constructed deck, but in Arena it's not bad. I don't know, I give this card 2 stars. It's not that powerful in the long run. It's like not something you're going to craft, even though it's a common. You're not going to be like, oh my god, I need this card in this deck. But you might put it in if you're like, I have a couple spots to fill. Let's throw in Plague Scientist. Now to the new weapon, 3 mana Shadow Blade. Battlecry, your hero is immune this turn. This was very interesting in a Mill Rogue type setup, because if you're both in Fatigue and you play Shadow Blade and then start playing Cold Blood Oracles, You won't be taking your fatigue damage, but your opponent still will. So it's a nice way to get some burst damage in through your fatigue. Otherwise, a 3-mana 3/2 weapon is a little less than what you want, but the Battlecry, your hero's immune this turn, is very good. So as a whole, I give this card 4 stars. Lillian Voss, a character I had never heard of before from the Warcraft universe. Apparently very key in Lich King, hence why it's legendary now. But Battlecry, replace all spells in your hand with random spells from your opponent's class. Whew. I just haven't seen this very well used in the past. I don't know whether or not to trust it. It's interesting in the Razor Petal Rogue, where you just replace all your Razor Petal leaves with random spells, but even then those can low roll. So if you want to play a Mimi random card, go ahead and play Lillian, but you don't want to craft her either. 2 stars. It's basically Nefarian. It's got the same problems Nefarian had. Runeforge Haunter. 4 mana 4/3. During your turn, your weapon doesn't lose durability. This makes it interesting with some of the weapon buffs, but it's a 4/3. It gets killed so easily. 2 stars, I'd say, for this, because your weapon not losing durability could prove very useful later in a different expansion when the weapons can support it. But Weapon Rogue just hasn't been a thing, partially because of the Rogue's lack of healing. So yeah, just 2 stars right now. Bone Baron, 5 mana 5/5, Death Rattle, add 2/1/1 skeletons to your hand. These are 1 mana cards as well. I would rather have it where it summoned the 1/1 skeletons, or if they were 0 mana cards, but it's great for combos, even just having them at 1 mana, but it's not really something that people are clamoring to play, even in N'Zoth decks, because N'Zothing this back doesn't really do you a whole lot. I give it 2 stars, it's not blowing me away. Spectral Pillager, deal 6 mana 5/5, deal equal damage to the number of cards you played this turn. This is an interesting card, and I like the concept of it, but the fact that it's 6 mana really limits how much damage you can do. And because of that, I give it 2 stars, just because you would need so many 0 mana cost cards, 1 mana cost cards to really make this work. You would need coins. It's just not something that I see working in the foreseeable future. So yeah, 2 stars. Valyria the Hollow, the Rogue Death Knight that really disappointed me. Battlecry gains stealth until your next turn is interesting. It's kind of cool to see a hero getting stealth. At least I like that. Otherwise, the hero power Death Shadow, passive during your turn, add Shadow Reflection to your hand. Basically, this becomes a copy of a card you just played, but it's not a permanent copy in your hand. You can't play a 10 mana card and have that card again for next turn. So you can't really copy anything more than 5 mana, which sucks. So I don't know, Valyria the Hollow. Some people have managed to make it work in like combo decks where they want to like get a bunch of copies of spells. But otherwise, I just don't see it working. So yeah, 2 stars. Oh god. So we are on to Shaman. Burlock, 2 mana 2/2, Warlock, freeze an enemy minion. Warlock Shaman's not a thing right now. Maybe one day, 2 stars. Cryostasis, give an enemy give a minion +3/+3 and freeze it. It's an interesting buff. If you play it on a totem that's been on your board for a little while, you will get that to work. Otherwise, it's not really that good. So I give it 2 stars. Maybe one day when the buff is actually useful in many other ways and stuff like that, maybe it'll work. But otherwise, I just don't think so. So, yeah, 2 stars. Ice Fishing. Murloc Shaman, not a thing. 2 stars. Draw 2 Murlocs is nice, but Murloc Shaman's not really a thing right now. Drakar Defender. 3 mana 2/8 Taunt. That's amazing for the mana cost, but overloads 3. So you play this on 3, next turn you only have 1 mana. You basically have to combo this with something that gets rid of your enemies, like, or that gets rid of your opponent's like damage, or your opponent's or your own overloaded crystals. Otherwise, it's just not worth playing. Maybe one day Overload Shaman will be a big thing again, and in that case, I make it work. But otherwise, I don't know. I just don't think this card could be that spectacular in the long run. 2 stars. Shaman did not do very well this expansion in the cards they were given. It's still okay as a whole and constructed, but that's because of previous expansions. Icebreaker. Destroy any frozen minion damaged by this. It's a 1/3 for 3. I don't know. It hasn't proven itself at all this expansion. It has not proved very useful. The 1/3 is absolutely horrible. You have to freeze to get the thing to be destroyed, and you still have to take the face damage. Like, yes, you can cryostasis that, but then you take 3 extra damage. 1 star. It's just not that good. Avalanche. Freeze a minion and deal 3 damage to the adjacent ones. So it's interesting with spell power, actually, because then it starts doing damage to the middle guy as well. Otherwise, I just see this card is not very swingy. I'll give it 2 stars. It's not very good right now. It's not seeing a ton of play because Shaman doesn't see a ton of play. But otherwise, I can see it being good one day. Thrall Seer is actually one of my favorite cards from this expansion because I love the evolution cards. 5 mana, so it's the cheapest of the Death Knights. Battlecry, transform your minions into ones that cost 2 more. The one downside I've discovered of this is the totems can transform into the 3 mana 5/5 minion or demon from Gadgetzan, I forget its name, Unlicensed Apothecary I think it was, and basically turn it into, like, however many you have, minions you have, it's dealing 5 damage to you. I feel like that should be fixed personally, because that really makes it hard to play this card. But it's Hero Power Transmute Spirit. It's basically a Master of Evolution for 2 mana without the minion. So yeah, if you're playing an Evolution deck, you definitely want this card. I like playing it. It's pretty good in normal Snake Shaman, especially Token Shaman it's also good in. So yeah, I give this card 4 stars. It's a very nice card. Voodoo Hexer. 5 mana 2/7 Taunt. Freeze any character damage by this minion. 2/7 Taunt for 5 is okay. The freeze is interesting, but Free Shaman has not really taken off as much as Blizzard probably thought it would. So I give this only 3 stars. It's a good card for itself, but it's not really seen play. Murabi. Shaman's legendary. Because Freeze Shaman is not a thing right now, this is not seen play. Whenever another minion is frozen, add a copy of it to your hand. While interesting for the value generation, a 6 mana 4/4 is just not worth it when it does not have a good effect that you can take advantage of right away. And freezing anything is not worth it at this point, so, or for this card to work. So it's just not worth it. It's not very good. I give it 2 stars. It might be good one day if Free Shaman ever takes off, but I don't see that happening. Snow Fury Giant. 11 mana 8/8. Another giant. Costs 1 less for each mana crystal. You've overloaded this game. Overload Shaman right now are not really a thing though, so no one's really playing Snow Fury Giant. I give it 2 mana. The one interesting thing I do like that this card brought about now is you have 10 mana cards, this giant at 11, and a 12 mana giant. You can now evolve 10 mana cards and devolve 11 and 12 mana cards and get another giant. Well, or a 10 mana card. So it's an interesting kind of like back and forth when you're playing Shaman now, because you can evolve your stuff and know it'll heal into another 8/8. It's an interesting way to look at things. Warlock, probably one of my favorite classes to play this expansion, although it's not doing very well as a whole and not really being done. Whew. Sanguine Reveler. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that first one right. 1 mana 1/1 Battlecry. Destroy a friendly minion and gain +2/+2. So it's 1 mana 3/3 functionally, but you have to sacrifice a minion. So unless you're playing an Egg Warlock deck, which has been done before in Ungaro to some extent, so it is doable. But I don't think this effect is very much worth it. Not a whole lot to kill off in this expansion that you want to kill off as far as Warlock decks go. So I give it 2 stars. Defile is ridiculous. I love this card. Deal 1 damage to all minions if any die, cast it again. 5 stars instantly. You want this card. You can get some great burglars from it. 5 stars. Drain Soul. Basically drain life, but can be affected by spell power as far as what you heal. Lifesteal, deal 2 damage to a minion. It's a little sad that they can't target face, but I'm glad in a way too, because I'm sick of all this face burst that Hearthstone's become. But as a whole, this is an interesting card. It's not a bad tech card for Warlock if you want to just have like this burst damage to come out of nowhere. A little extra burst damage, a little extra healing is always worth it. So I give it 3 stars. Gnome Feratu. I know this joke is probably a pun or a joke in some way. I never really picked up on it, but I know it's kind of funny. Battle Cry, though. Remove the top card of your opponent's deck. The RNG of this, though, is very interesting in the fact that you either get rid of a card that your opponent really needs, and you kind of win off of that, or you just remove a card that they don't want to draw right now, and you make it easier for them to win. So I've never used this card. I'm keeping on to it. I'm holding on to it just because at this point, if I ever need dust, this will be one of the first to go, though. Otherwise, though, I just don't think this is worth it. It's, I don't know, 1 star even. Yeah, this effect is not worth having a 2-mana 2/3 in your deck. Howl Fiend, 3 mana 3/6. Whenever this minion takes damage, discard a random card. This worked interesting with Treachery, one of the other new cards, because you could then just give your opponent a way to discard all their cards when they definitely don't want to. Also, it gives. Also, yeah, you can think of it as this will activate my quest, but Quest Warlock's still not that good. So, 2 stars. It's very niche. It's not that good when it is played. 2 stars. This is a card I wish was better. Treachery, choose a friendly minion, give it to your opponent. But outside of Doomsayer, there's not a whole lot that goes on with it very well. Like, yes, you could give them your bomb squad, but you're still having to spend 8 mana to deal 5 damage to a minion, and give them a 2/2 death rattle that deals 5 to their face. It's just so involved to get good combos with this card that no one's really playing it, so if the right cards are added to be Treachery to your opponent, ones with good battle cries but horrible death rattles, then I'll see them played. And so, like, I give this card 2 stars. It could be good one day, though. Unwilling Sacrifice, destroy a friendly minion and a random enemy minion, or choose a friendly minion to destroy, and it destroys a random enemy minion. Once again, good in Egg Warlock. I feel like I want to try and make an Egg Warlock deck at some point and just take advantage of these cards. Otherwise, it's not that great, though. I give it 2 stars. Lanethel, one of the more annoying of the adventure encounters. Lifesteal, 5 mana 1/6, that's +1 attack for each card you've discarded this game. Discard Warlock's not good, though. And you can also discard this card, at which point you're just like, well, what do I do now? So, I don't know. I give this card 2 stars. If Discard Warlock is ever good, this card will be good, but it's not, so it's not. Despicable Dreadlord is actually one of the nicer cards of this expansion. 5 mana 4/5, yes, it's understated, but at the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. If you get 2 of these on the board, it's basically a free Blizzard at the end of every turn, which is funny and also really nice to have. And I like it because of that. So I give this card 5 stars. Actually, it's very good. It's a card that if you are playing Warlock, you want it in your deck no matter what Warlock deck you are playing. You just want this card, be it Zoo, be it Death Knight, be it just Demon Lock, be it anything, you want this card in your deck. So yeah, 5 stars. Blood Reaver Gul'dan is another card that I give 5 stars to. Because the battle cry is nice. You get 5, or you get a board full of minions, summon that died this game. The hero power is amazing. Lifesteal, deal 3 damage. I love this card. It's a very powerful card. The only downside is it is 10 mana. So if you play this card, that's all you're doing. So I don't know. It's interesting. So I don't know about that. I don't know. Whew. But yeah, I give it 5 stars. It's pretty damn good. On to Warrior, who is one of the decks that have been, or one of the worst card decks or classes to get hit by Frozen Throne, just with stuff that got nerfed, stuff that got given to it. Just didn't get given the tools it needs. Animated Berserker, 1 mana 1/3. After you play a minion, deal 1 damage to it. Cool concept, not really good, that useful in practice. 1 star. Bring It On, gain 10 armor, reduce the cost of minions in your opponent's hand by 2. Interesting in Fatigue Warrior, that's about it. I just don't see it working out that well. Dead Man's Hand, shuffle a copy of your hand into your deck. This proved to be an interesting concept for like an infinite warrior that used Arcane Giants, the Death Knight, Whirlwind Effects, and Sun Genesis, as well as Blood Warriors. So it's interesting, but it just hasn't proved to be too powerful yet. So I don't know. I haven't seen it work very well. But I do think it could be powerful one day, especially Fatigue Warrior or Control Warrior, traditional Control Warrior, not Quest Warrior, comes back into the meta, then it will be good. So I give it 3 stars. Forge of Souls, 2 mana, draw 2 weapons from your deck. 2 mana, draw 2 cards is always good. But they are specifically weapons. You can't dual wield weapons yet. I really wish that's what the Death Knight Warrior had been. That would have been great. Or the Rogue one. Both would have been funny to see. But as a whole, I don't think this card is very good. It sees a little bit of play in some Power Warriors or some Weapon Warriors. 2 stars, I guess. If a Weapon Warrior comes back, this will be a good card for them. Mountain Fire Armor. 3 mana, 4/3. Death Rattle if it's your opponent's turn, gain 6 armor. I like this card. It just isn't really working out that much. It's just not a very key card in any deck. I give it 3 stars though. I love the if it's your opponent's turn mechanic, especially when it's something like this where it's statted aggressively. If you leave it alive, your opponent will be able to like use it to trade up a lot of the time. But if you kill it on your turn, you will give it health, or you give your opponent health, and which is something that aggro decks really have to debate about. Whew. Okay. Valkyr Soul Claimer. Whenever this minion takes damage and survives, summon a 2/2 ghoul. So this has to survive damage, mind you. It's not going to summon you a ghoul if it takes 4 damage off the bat. And even if you do take 1 damage, like say you combo this with Whirlwind, you're paying 4 mana for a 1/3 and a 2/2. It's just not that powerful in practice. This would be good with Rampage, which gives a damage rating +3/+3, but that's a card that makes a lot of these cards good, and you can't have 15 copies of Rampage in your hand at all times. So I give this card 2 stars. It's just not that great. Bloodraiser, on the other hand, is interesting. 4 mana, 2/2. It's worse than Deathspite in that sense, but it does have the Whirlwind twice as a Battlecry and a Death Rattle. So if you played Deathspite for the Whirlwind, you want this card. If you played Deathspite for the 4 attack, you don't want this card. But I give it 4 stars. It's very powerful in that sense. Death Revenant. Gain +1/+1 for each damage minion as Battlecry. But the problem is it's 5 mana. In order to really take advantage of that, you need to have a board full of damage minions that can just, in turn, kill this. So that's really not that great in practice. So in practice, I give it 2 stars. Rot Face. 8 mana, 4/6. Horrible stats. But whenever this minion survives damage, summon a random legendary minion. That's really good. That is just really good. But the low stats do make it killable by 1 fireball and stuff like that. That's why it's so weak with its effect. Because if it just survives once, it can summon a legendary that can really throw off your game. If you want to try the Whirlwind Warrior, or even just try this as a card in a warrior deck, that's hard to kill unless you can kill it in 1 shot. It's interesting, and I certainly like it. I don't know. I give this card 3 stars. I'd like to see it be good. Scourge Lord Garrosh, the only Death Knight card I don't have, fun fact. Equips a 4/3 Shadowmourne that also damages adjacent minions, and has the Blade Storm power that does 1 damage to all minions. Really wish this hero power would have had something to do with dual wielding weapons. I think that would have been great for a warrior. It would have been very cool. The Whirlwind effects is not bad. 2 mana Whirlwind for hero power. The Shadowmourne is a very good weapon to have. The 5 armor is nice. I just don't think it's a very powerful card. It doesn't have a deck to really go in right now, is the problem for it. But it might be good. It might be very good one day, especially with the Dead Man's Hand Giants combo. So, 2 stars. On to the neutrals, which, there are a lot of them. So let's start at the beginning with the cutest card in the game, Snow Flipper Penguin, 0 mana 1/1 beast. It's a 0 mana card. It'll go in the Raza Priest deck to give it another shot, basically during its turn. Otherwise, you don't have to craft it. It's just a penguin. 2 stars, sure. Atris Veteran. 1 mana 2/1 Battlecry, give a friendly minion 1 attack. It's interesting. It's not Lance Carrier, and it's not Abusive Sergeant. But it's like the in-between. It's got the stats of the pre-nerfed Abusive Sergeant, and its attack buff is permanent. So it's got an interesting give and take. It's a 2/1 still, which is nice for a 1-drop too. I give this card 3 stars. I think it could actually be proved to be decent in almost any zoo deck at this point. Deathscale Knight, 1 mana 1/1 Lifesteal Murloc. It's a 1/1 is the problem, and the lifesteal of a 1 mana 1/1 is not going to be that influential. If you play this, if you're playing a Murloc deck, you'll want this just because you want to play every single Murloc you can. Otherwise, you're not going to see this card. 2 stars. Rigid Tiller. I have fun with this in Arena. Just because you play it on turn 1, you can usually get a couple of pings with the 2 damage into your hero. 1 mana, 1/1. Whenever this minion attacks, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. So it deals 3 damage if it attacks the hero is the important thing here. So it does become a 4/1 or a 3/1 in a way when it attacks the enemy hero. It's a fun card. It's nice still to chip damage, but you wouldn't want to craft it for constructed. So I give it 1 star. Fallen Sun Cleric. Shroud Sun Cleric -1/-1. Basically for 1 mana less. It being 2 mana, and so unless you're playing a Zoo deck where you have a ton of 1-drops, it's not going to get played. So I give this card 2 stars. It works in Zoo decks where you have the cheap minions, but otherwise it won't. Prince Kaliseth. Boy, did I underrate this card. I thought this card would be horrible. I thought all the prints were going to be horrible. Only this one proved out to be the only one that's amazing. It's very good in the Tempo Rogue deck that has been swarming around now. And it's okay in certain Pirate Warrior decks and stuff like that. So I give this card 3 stars. It's pretty good, but you have to be playing the right decks. Tainted Zealot. 2 mana, 1/1. Divine Shield. Spell damage +1. Great in Warlock because of Defile. Because you think about it, you get 2 damage. If it kills something, you get 2 damage again. And then it kills this, so you get another 1 damage. At least. So you're dealing at least 5 damage if you kill one thing before this. Very, very good card. I give it 4 stars. 4 stars indeed. Great for spell damage. I put this above the Kobold at 2 mana. Tuskar Fisherman, 2 mana, 2/3, Battlecry, give us friendly minions spell damage +1. So you can throw this onto a minion that has a ton of health and just have spell damage for virtually the rest of the game, which is nice. I like that concept of it. Otherwise, this card is not very powerful as a whole. It's great in Arena. Great if you really want spell damage in your deck. So I give this card 2 stars. Death Speaker, another card that's great in Arena. 3 mana, 2/4, give a friendly minion immune this turn. 2 stars. This card not very good in constructed for the simple reason that most constructed decks want to synergize with themselves. This card does not inherently give synergy to any deck or any other card, so it's not going to get played in constructed. It's only 2 stars. Drakari Enchanter. This is great in Wild because you have stuff like Thaurissan, you have Ragnaros and stuff like that that can trigger at the end of the turn. Not a whole lot of end of turn effects that are amazing right now that you want this thing to be triggering, but it has potential. It could be very good. I give this card 3 stars even because of that potential being so amazing. Any end of turn effects that are good now are going to be great because of this. Happy Ghoul. This was very popular in the original Jackie Chan Warlock deck because you could just get a 3/3 functionally for free if you ever healed. But people found out how to play around that. It wasn't very good as a whole. So it's just... I give this card 3 stars. It's a rather average card. Like in Priest, you pay 2 mana for this because you heal your hero with your hero power. So yeah, 3 stars. Highlander Frostrider? I'm not sure how to pronounce that first word, obviously, because this card is very rarely played. 3 mana, 4/4, freeze your own minions. You have to freeze your own minions for this. Is the issue. You're not going to play this in the late game if you have a board at all, and in the late game, a 4/4 is not worth it. This is good in Arena. This is a very good card in Arena, but it's not seen playing constructed. 2 stars. Mindbreaker, 3 mana, 2/5. Hero powers are disabled. I like this card for what it does, especially against Death Knights in Arena. You want this card, but otherwise, this card is not very powerful. Outside of its utility, you got to know when to play it, and you got to know how to keep it alive, when to keep it alive, and when to kill it. Because you don't want to disrupt yourself more than your opponent. So you got to know what you're doing with it. Because of that high degree of difficulty, I only give it 3 stars. And it's like if you know how to use it and you think you can handle it well, then go ahead and craft it. So, Prince Taldaram, probably the worst of the princes, just because. Well, I'll get to this. So Battlecry, it's a 3 mana 3/3. If you have no other 3-cost cards, transform it into a 3/3 copy of a minion. So it's Faceless Manipulator, but it doesn't copy the stats. It's just... You have to really want to copy a lot of things in your deck to make this card good. You need Sylvanas, you need Ragnaroses and stuff like that. You don't need what we have in standard right now. So yeah, I give this card 2 stars. Shallow Grave Digger. 3 mana, 3/1. Death Rattle, add a random Death Rattle minion to your hand. It's not that great. It's great in Death Rattle decks where you just want more and more Death Rattles, like Quest Priest, stuff like that. Otherwise, I don't see it seeing a lot of play. I give it 3 stars. Just because of the value that it has, and if you're playing a type of deck that wants Death Rattles, you want this card in it. 3 stars. Vryghoul, 3 mana, 3/1 again. If it's your opponent's turn, summon a 2/2 Ghoul. This is a little bit better than the Paladin one, just because a 3/1 and a 2/2 aren't that far off, and it's better stats for 3 mana. But once again, still not that useful. In the sense that the 2/2 is not enough to incentivize your opponent from killing this on their turn. And that's why it's got a bit of a problem. So I only give it 2 stars. Artifice, probably the cutest card in this expansion. 4 mana, 2/2, add a random Death Knight card to your hand. Death Knight cards are interesting, but they're so different that just getting one of them is not worth it, especially not playing a 4 mana, 2/2. If you're playing a Legendaries only deck, which is always interesting to try, or a Death Rattle deck, you might try this. But otherwise, 2 stars. Corpse-Taker. This card is interesting. Battlecry. Gain Taunt if your deck has Taunt. Repeat for Divine Shield, minion, Divine Shield, Lifesteal, and Wind Fury. So you could potentially have a 4/4 Taunt, Divine Shield, Lifesteal, Wind Fury card. Most people will play this in Paladin, where you can get the Divine Shield and Taunt off of Tyrion, as well as a Lifesteal off of Wicker Flame. Wind Fury, I mean, you could throw Grook Fruin in if you really want it, but most people don't need it. It's just an interesting card. I definitely give it 4 stars. It's a fun card to play around with, and it's not just usable in Paladin. Death Axe Punisher. Give a random Lifesteal minion in your hand +2/+2. Lifesteal is not that popular, though, where you can guarantee the buff, so I give this only 2 stars. If there's enough Lifesteal, or Lifesteal eventually takes over the meta, then this card will be good. It's also an epic. I know, is it a rare? No, it's an epic, so yeah, it's not that great in that sense. Grave Shambler. Whenever your weapon is destroyed, gain +1/+1. It's an elemental, 4 mana, 4/4. Your weapon isn't destroyed that much, so you might get this to a 5/5 because you play it and then use your last swing of your weapon. It's just not really seen play in any prominent deck right now, though, so I give it 2 stars. One day this might see play, though, in an elemental weapon deck, if that ever becomes a thing. Grim Necromancer. 4 mana, 2/4, summon 2 1/1 skeletons. This could potentially be really good in a zoo deck, where you just want a bunch of stuff to buff, or token deck even. Otherwise, it's just a bundle of stats. It's decent in Arena. 2 stars. Keening Banshee. 4 mana, 5/5. Whenever you play a card, move the top 3 of your deck. It's basically a more controllable Fel Reaver, but I don't like it. I give it 3 stars because it can be useful if you play it right, but realistically, you're not going to, and you're not going to have many situations where you want this card over something else. So, yeah, 3 stars. Meat Wagon. 4 mana, 1/4. Death Rattle. Summon a minion from your deck with less attack than this minion. 1, you can buff it to get a specific thing if you really want to. 2, you can play a bunch of low attack minions to play around with this, as well as buff it. Abusive Sergeant obviously will pull something with 2 or more attack than this has, but I haven't really seen it take off in the way that you would want it to, so I give it 2 stars. It's got the potential to be amazing if it gets the right support, but other than that, it hasn't yet. Night Howler. A 4 mana, 3/4, so it's already understated. Whenever this minion takes damage, gain 2 attack. The only way this thing becomes good, in fact, I'm going to actually disenchant this because it's horrible. The only way this minion becomes good or decent is if you have it with a Whirlwind, and if you play it with Whirlwind, you're paying 5 mana for a 5/3 that has this effect. It probably gets killed pretty quickly because it only has 3 health. It would need more stats for this effect to be good, and you already have Grubashi Berserker to take advantage of that. So yeah, 1 star. Phantom Freebooter. Battlecry. Gain the stats of your weapon. It's interesting. It's not bad in Warrior. It's even okay in Rogue, because you get a 4 mana 5/4 or 4 mana 4/5 if you don't have your weapon buffed or anything like that. Otherwise, I don't think it's that powerful of a card, though. So, give it 2 stars. Prince Valinor. A decent one of the princes. I played in my Warlock deck. If you have no other 4-cost cards, it gains lifesteal and taunt. Thing is, though, it's just a 4/4 taunt with lifesteal. It's not that great in the late game. It's okay in the early game. I just like playing it in that Warlock deck. So I give this 2 stars. Rattlin Rascal. Summon a 5/5 skeleton as a battle cry. Death Rattle, summon 1 for your opponent. It's interesting in Evolve decks because you just basically play this and Evolve on turn 5. You get a lot of big stuff. The 5/5 is a 5-cost thing, so you get a 6-cost and a 5-cost card. So it's nice, but it's very niche at the same time. So I only give it 3 stars. Serenite Chain Gang. Taunt. You basically, for 4 mana, get 2/2/3 taunts. It's nice spraying the stats out a little bit. As taunts, you do want to have either a very big wall or a wide wall. This definitely works for the wide wall. It's hard to break through this unless you have a ton of minions on the board that can deal 3 damage. That's when it becomes a hard thing. As a whole, though, this is great in Evolve decks, great in Token decks as well. I give this 3 stars. Ticket Abomination, 1 star. I don't even think I have to explain why. Death Rattle, deal 5 stuff to your own minion, damage to your own stuff. 4 mana 5/6 is not high, overstated enough to make it worth it. You just don't want it. Wicked Skeleton, Battlecry, gain +1/+1 for each minion that died this turn. It's a 4 mana 1/1. So 3 things have to die for this to be a 4/4. It's not worth it. You have to really get it right. And that's the problem with this. In order for this card to be very good, you have to kill off a lot of minions in 1 turn. And still have 4 mana to play. It's just not worth it. 1 star. Bloodworm, 5 mana 4/4 lifesteal. Many people will play this to get the lifesteal on their Corpse Taker. It's not bad. In fact, in Hunter, if this gets buffed, it's pretty good because it's also a beast. And it's a little bit of healing for Hunter, who can struggle with healing a little bit. It's also something you can get off a Zombeast as well to add lifesteal to your Zombeast. In fact, this plus Kodo becomes a 9 mana 6/8 with lifesteal that deals its damage as it comes in. So you heal for 6 when it gets played. It's a very interesting card. I like it though. But as a whole, in constructed, the card itself, as far as like your ability to like, if you're going to throw this in your deck, I only give it 3 stars. I don't think it's something you're going to clamor to throw in a lot of decks. And you really only need it if you need lifesteal in your deck, or a beast that has lifesteal in your deck specifically, like a hunter maybe. 3 stars. Cobalt Scalebane, 5 stars, especially in Arena, but it's also good in it's good in Dragon Priest. It's good in a lot of Dragon decks right now. 5 mana 5/5. At the end of your turn, give a friendly random minion 3 attack. So it is very much like the 2 mana 1/3 that does 1 attack. I forget the name of the card. It's very good in Arena because of this, and Dragon decks obviously want this dragon in it. So I give this card 5 stars. Corpse Raiser. Battlecry, give something Ancestral Spirit that Shaman has. 3/3. It's interesting. I like it. It hasn't really seen a ton of play, though. It hasn't really taken off anywhere. So because of that, I give it 3 stars. Because it's got a cool effect. It's even useful in this meta. But it's not very noteworthy. Skelemancer, on the other hand. Death Rattle, 5 mana 2/2. If it's your opponent's turn, summon an 8/8 skeleton. This is amazing in any deck that can give it taunt. Because then you have to force your opponent to summon you the skeleton or have silence. This card alone made silence semi-necessary in some decks. Like, this in Paladin with Stegadon Steed on it as well is one of the reasons why silence is now being played again in some cases. So, this card is definitely 4 stars, 5 stars if you want to play a deck that can give it taunt. Sunborn Valkyr. Battlecry, give adjacent minions +2 health, 5 mana 5/4. It's a little understated, but the health is nice on certain minions. If you could make this work in your deck, it's pretty damn good. Otherwise, it's okay. So I give this card 3 stars. Tomb Lurker. Similar thing. If you're playing Death Rattle decks that can make use of this card, it's pretty good. Otherwise, it's not. 3 stars. Venomancer. 5 mana, 2/5 poisonous. 2/5 for 5 is not that great. It's actually pretty horrible. Poisonous for 2/5 at 5 mana. It's also not that great, so I only give this card 2 stars. It's just way too expensive for what it wants to do. Bone Drake. Great dragon card again. Great in Dragon Priest. Great in any type of deck that wants some big cards, a little bit extra value generation. because the Death Rattle gives you a random dragon. There aren't many bad dragons you can get off of this. I can't really think of many at all. And it's a 6/5 for 6. It's also a dragon of its own. Death Rattle, so it can get summoned back from the Zoth. Very good. 4 stars. Furnace Fire Colossus. 6 mana, 6/6, battle cry. Discard all weapons from your hand and gain their stats. This can be amazing in a very weapon-heavy deck, but oh my god, if you don't draw this at the right time, it's horrible. You need a bunch of weapons in your hand, but you don't want to discard your whole hand at the same time. Also, if this thing gets killed by either a big game hunter, shadow, or death, transformed, anything like that, you just wasted all those weapons that you discarded into it by doing that. So I give this card 2 stars. In the right meta, it could be very good, but I don't think that right meta is coming anytime soon. So this card just really won't be played. In fact, I'm going to disenchant my 1 copy of it. I want 100%. Necrotic Geist. 6 mana, 5/3. Whenever one of your minions dies, summon a 2/2 ghoul. It's basically Cult Master, but with ghouls instead, and a little bit, and 1 more stat in each. It's seen some interesting things. It's worked in it's been played in OTK Warlock. I've seen with the File and Knife Juggler and the Immune guys in Wild, because you have to get Thorsen, I think, to make it work. It's funny. It's cool to use. Not really that powerful though as a whole. So I give it only 2 stars. And we're on our last page now. Nerubian Unraveler. 6 mana, 5/5. All spells cost 2 more. It's basically a Lotheb that's not as good, so I only give this card 2 stars, just because it's easy enough to work around the 2 cost increase as your opponent, and this also affects you. So you have to kill this off if you really need to use a spell. So I just don't see this working out very well. I give this 2 stars. One day it might be great. Skulking Geist, the thing that was supposed to kill off J-Druid and didn't really at first. Battlecry, destroy all 1-cost spells in both your hand and deck, in both hands and decks. People thought this would kill off J-Druid because it would destroy all their Jade Idols. The problem is, Jade Idol is not necessarily as key of a card for J-Druid as people thought it was. It's still a decent tempo deck, and just a decent card deck that can get really big Jades just off of its other cards if you destroy its Jade Idols. It's interesting in other decks just because it removes some resources. If you really want to play a deck with a bunch of 1-cost spells for the early game, and then you're in the late game, you want to play this card because it gets rid of those early game weapons that you had that you don't want anymore. So it's interesting to play with. I gave this 3 stars. Tonight it didn't do what it wanted to, what everyone wanted it to do, but it does what it's supposed to do pretty well. Spellweaver, 6 mana, 4/4, spell damage +2. You're not paying this much for just 2 spell damage. I don't know, 4/4. It's not worth it. 1 star. In fact, goodbye. Bone Mare, the king of Arena, or one of the kings of Arena right now. 7 mana, 5/5, give a friendly minion +2, +4/+4, and taunt. This is an amazing card. It's Blessing of Kings plus taunt plus a 5/5 for 7 mana. You're functionally getting taunt and a 5/5 for 3 mana because +4/+4 would be Blessing of Kings for 4 mana. This card is ridiculous. 5 stars. If you don't have it, you want it. And if you have it, you're keeping it for a long time. It's a very good card in almost any deck that's going to have a minion on a board. 5 stars. Lich King. 8 mana, 8/8, taunt at the end of your turn. Add a random Death Knight card to your hand. I like this card better than Ysera because although the Death Knight cards are so varied that it's hard to pick or to know like just which one you want, or like you'll know which one you want, and if you don't get it, it's hard to just use it because it's good. So it's definitely interesting. But the other interesting thing is, it has taunt, and it's an 8/8. It's 1 mana cheaper than Ysera. It has the ability to be meaningful on the board right away because of the taunt, and also be more of a threat to your opponent as face damage as having 8 health. Yes, it dies faster than Ysera, but 8 health is still hard to kill. So obviously this card is 5 stars. It's a very good card. If you don't have it, you want it. It's just very powerful. So 5 stars. So that's all the cards. I'm going to jump on over to the expansion now real quick, the solo adventure. Just talk about it for a minute. Frozen Throne. I still haven't beaten Lich King because I'm lazy, but we'll get to that. So the prologue was fun. Just funny stuff between Jaina and Tyrion. Just fun to do. All of these boss fights, though, were interesting. They were fun. Like, I still haven't beaten Lich King. Lich King is hard. Marigar is bullshit. You need a lot of randomness to really win that. Or you need to get lucky in some ways. It's just hard to beat. But if you beat it, you feel good. Like, these encounters were both hard, they were challenging, but they weren't too hard. You could beat them if you knew what you were doing. It wasn't just all luck. And that's what I liked about it. I definitely personally would rate this expansion on a scale of 1 to 10. Or these solo adventures on a scale from 1 to 10. Yes, it's short. It's a little short. Or at least a little shorter than I would rather have it been. You didn't quite get as much as I would hope you did. You only get 4 card backs and 1 legendary free for it. Which, when you think of what other adventures gave you, although this is a free one, but when you think of what other adventures would give you, this is very underwhelming. As a whole, though, I give the solo adventure a 9 out of 10. As a whole, I give this expansion an 8.5 out of 10, because some of the cards were a little disappointing, some of the archetypes just didn't work out. But it's been working out nicely. But that is my review of Knights of the Frozen Throne. I have one last thing I want to talk about before we leave. Before I leave this stream to start a different one. Let's see if I can pull it up this way. I can't. Let's do this then. I'm going to pull it up on Chrome. I'm going to talk about the Hearthstone nerfs that just went through. So here's what happened with these nerfs. They changed some cards. Start from the top. They changed Innervate to now be just a counterfeit coin, basically killed the card. It's a classic card, which sucks for new players. They're really making it hard to play as a new player now in Hearthstone because they want to not limit their design space. Which I don't hate. I don't blame them for it, but God, could this have been so much better. I wish they hadn't changed Innervate, because that makes almost any Druid deck that needed it a lot harder to use. I don't know. I don't think that one was worth doing. Same with Fiery Warx. Now costs 3 mana. Is now the worst 3 mana weapon in the game. If I had done it my way, I would have totally given it, kept it at 2 mana, but had it be a 1/2 weapon, and then had it be, it has +2 attack when attacking minions. Because the big problem with Fiery Warx was that it was attacking face too much with Pirate Warrior. You could have fixed that in a different way. Hex made no sense to me. It's now 4 mana. Instead of 3, but it also being 3 mana was a little weird because Polymorph was 4 mana for Mage. So 4 mana does make sense, it's just a change no one really saw coming. War Leader, glad this happened. Now only gives 2 attack as opposed to 2 attack and 1 health, which is nice. It does make it a little bit harder to use in decks that aren't the anything can happen Paladin and Wild, but it's still a decent card. It's still nice in Murloc decks. They're going to rely on the Cold Seer, or Cold Light Seer, I think it is, that gives +2 health to all Murlocs to basically get their sustain out of that instead. Spreading Plague now costs 6. I don't think it changes the card that much outside of that, alongside the Innervate nerf, makes it come out a lot slower against aggressive decks, thus by giving Druids a weakness. So that is it, though. That is my review of the recent changes, as well as the recent changes to Hearthstone nerfs, as well as the Knights of Frozen Throne expansion and cards. So anyway, I'll see you guys next time in a few minutes when I switch to a different game. Goodbye. This has been Franchise. I'll see you guys later.